It's Andra Zaharia here, and I'm delighted to bring you the Cyber Empathy podcast, where I share stories of kindness, curiosity, and connection that show you how humans shape online security and privacy. I've been in the cybersecurity industry since 2015, and the one thing that I appreciate most about it are the incredibly diverse, curious, empathetic, and crazy smart people in it. They have taught me a lot about myself, about technology, and about all the ways that we can make a meaningful contribution to the world that we live in. I am beyond thrilled to share with you their stories, their passions, their values, and their principles, and most of all, how they lead through example and how they make their work and their passion projects count every single day. I'm super excited to share them with you, and I hope you'll join me and become my partner in cyber empathy. So see you soon. Saaim has spent over a decade in cybersecurity. He's seen how sales processes work in big companies. He's seen what companies and business people deal with in terms of trying to secure their businesses. He's seen a lot of this industry, but he's always been very connected to the people outside of it, the people he's trying to serve. Now, as founder of Jumpstart Security, he's taking a different approach, and he's trying to make this abstract field and these abstract concepts that we work with in cybersecurity. He's trying to bring clarity, focus, and ease of use into everything so that people can actually feel like they have a handle on their information security program and that they are able to stay compliant and to navigate around all of these pieces of legislation, all of these regulations, and ultimately all of the must-haves to keep their business safe, their customers safe, and generally just make sure that everything is on point. So we talked about a lot of things in this episode simply because both me and Saaim share the same values and the same principles about the human aspect of cybersecurity and what actually makes a difference when you talk to people and try to get them interested in this topic. Not just interested, but hopefully, motivated enough for them to actually act on what they know is right for themselves and their business. So I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Saaim, and I'll hope you get curious to discover his perspective on things and follow his work, because he's doing great things, not just in the cybersecurity ecosystem, but also for businesses in Australia and beyond. So enjoy. Saaim, so excited to talk to you today. First of all, because I know that we share the same principles when it comes to cybersecurity in general and how things happen in the industry and how people contribute to it. Second of all, because I really like your perspective in terms of what it takes to build a business in this space and how you do it and how you're committed to making that contribution a meaningful one and a valuable one for the industry. So I wanted to ask you today, how do you use empathy in your work to make sure that that contribution that you're making to the cybersecurity community and to those who benefit from it is aligned with your principles and goals?
I think the answer is in itself is if you are part of a community, whether it's a functional community like cybersecurity, or if you're part of a larger community like a small business community. I'm a small business owner myself. For me, I ask myself one question, which is if someone was trying to say this to me, sell this to me, communicate this to me, would I buy into it? And if the answer is no, then why should I expect anybody else to buy into what I'm trying to do, right? So I always have to think about it from that perspective. And it's easy to get caught up in, drinking your own Kool-Aid that, what I have to offer is the best in the market. People are much more educated right now about things. They know a scam when they see one. And, to borrow something that happened in the cyberspace quite a bit. So the guiding principle, around empathy that I would use is to really ask that question. Would I buy it? Would I believe it? Would I do this? Would I believe this? And if I can't honestly answer that, then I have no right to be asking others to buy into it either. So that's, I guess, my empathy tool that I use, I suppose.
And I think that's a very fitting one, especially when we find those connection points to people who are like us, because if we want to obviously engage, whether it is to sell, educate, or otherwise support people who need some kind of cybersecurity product or service, you need that bridge. You need that emotional connection, because otherwise it's not going to hit home. We all have this challenge of trying to get people to act proactively, and obviously that is one of the biggest challenges that humanity has to deal with on several aspects. So you've worked with big companies, you've worked with huge teams, and so on and so forth. So what was it like to connect to small business owners when you started out, when you started building the company?
A lot of challenging statements to hear, a lot of beliefs being challenged. I say that because having worked a lot in the mid-market space and the enterprise space, or the entry-level enterprise space, like 1,500 employee companies or big, or around that size, there's a process in place, there's a procurement board in place, there's a business case process established, there's change management and all of those things. And everyone follows the bureaucratic wheels, so to speak, when you're talking to them and getting things across the line, even when it's a new project or it's a company need. In small business, it's not like that. It's more along the lines of, this looks good or this does not look good, because it'll help my business or hinder my business, or help me or hinder me. So a lot of your core fundamentals that you're taught when you learn pre-sales, or when you learn about how to do solution selling, they go out the window. A small business owner is more concerned about, okay, how do I secure data on this computer? I don't care about having backups which are 599 guaranteed. How do I save data? I don't get it. So you have to have that individual personal conversation. Otherwise, you are just another salesperson who's flogging a different brand of snake oil to them. So it was a lot of unlearning for me.
Oh, yes. And sometimes it takes a lot more than learning new things, at least in my experience. What I really appreciate about your work is that you bring a lot of clarity and simplicity to an area that's especially complex and convoluted, and generally plagued by fear, uncertainty, and doubt, urgency, and a lot of emotional triggers that kind of point people towards negative emotions. So I was wondering if you could tell me, from your experience, what does cybersecurity, data security look like when it builds on empathy instead of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or other negative emotions, generally speaking?
It's an enabler. It's something that gets you from point A to point B. So call it an enabler, call it a conduit, call it a catalyst, whatever you want. It's a means to an end. And if you start looking at it in that perspective, a lot of opportunities come up. With the fear, uncertainty, doubt, I mean, it's not just fear, uncertainty, doubt. It's kind of like, if you've ever seen one of those tele shopping ads, but wait, there's more. That's not a negative emotion. That's a positive emotion, but that's saying that, oh, this is too good to be true. I think it's better if I explain it in an example. When I talk about compliance, right? For example, ISO 27001 certification. The way that I talk about how it's beneficial is when I have a conversation, it is, are you tired of filling out those security questionnaires with the 100-odd questions? What's the first question they ask, right? Are you certified? And if yes, you can skip question 2 to 99. You can just proceed to the last question. It'll help you save time. And secondly, in whatever space you work in, how many other companies do you know? How many of your competitors are ISO certified? It gives you an edge. That's an enabler. It saves you time and it wins you business. That's how I talk about cyber. When we talk about, let's say, data backup and data security, right? Hackers will use your network storage to propagate crypto locker and ransomware, and your files will be, et cetera, et cetera. My response to that is, do you follow what's normally quite common in our industry called the 3-to-1 strategy? 3 sources across 2 locations, right? For the life of me, I can't remember what 3-to-1 stands for right now, even though I'm saying, oh, it's in our industry. It's also important to be humble, and sometimes you forget things. I forget things half the time. I am a subject matter expert, but I'm also human, right? So you tend to forget things as well. And you need to have the humility to accept that in front of a customer saying, I'm actually not sure about that, or that escapes me right now. Can I get back to you? But then you build trust by then going back to them. You say what you say you do.
Exactly. Just sticking to the promise and making sure that people have that trust in you. I find that one of the key things around cybersecurity is for people to have someone they trust, whether it's a friend or a family member or a business partner or an employee even, or a provider of services or products. I feel that having that person to trust because they know they empathize with them, they know that they have their best interest at heart, that's where change starts to happen. Actually, that's where good habits come into play, and it makes it so much easier to navigate this industry, or simply a range of tools and choices that have so much complexity and so many decisions associated with them. So I really like that you talked about this specifically. And I also wanted to kind of ask you, how did you end up in cybersecurity, and what attracted you to this industry? What made you want to pursue, building a business, which is one of the most difficult things that we can do, is specifically in this area that is one of the most difficult to tackle, to be honest?
Okay, so I actually started my career in the early 2000s, software developer by qualification, and naturally fell into the business analyst route. Did a lot of technology consulting with small and micro businesses in the fintech, in the microfinance space. At that time, Grameen Bank was the rage, and a lot of small microfinance organizations spreading up around Asia. So, that's how I started. Then the GFC happened, had to figure out what to do. The best thing to do in the time of a global financial crisis is to go back to uni. So that's what I did. And I migrated to Australia and I came here. Here's where I fell into cybersecurity. And there's a little bit of empathy here as well. I had no intention of applying for any jobs in cyber. A friend of mine had just been made redundant at his role at a visa immigration firm, and he was very, very down in the dumps. And I said, "Hey, I'll help you apply for jobs. Look, I'm doing it as well." So I, took my laptop, sat next to him, and I saw this job saying cybersecurity project manager role. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm studying project management at UTS right now. I could probably do this. I've got an IT background. So just to motivate my friend to keep applying for jobs, I applied for that job. And then I forgot about it. A couple of days later, I got a call from the CEO of that company saying that, he wanted me to come in for an interview. And I had no idea what he was talking about. So I'm like, oh, wait, no, I did apply for this. So I should go in. I should probably read the cover letter I wrote. And then when I went in, I understood the nature of the work. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And that's how I got into it. This was 2009, 2010. And here we are. Helping someone, motivating someone to apply for jobs kind of is how I got into cybersecurity. Like there's nothing glamorous about it. That's literally how it happened.
It doesn't have to be glamorous to help people. I think that that's one of the things that we need to sometimes emphasize, simply because we live in such a world where everything is hyped up and everything has to be so polished and perfect. And well, 99% of the time it's fake. So I'm all for real stories. And I think that we discover a lot of things about ourselves when helping others or when trying to explain things to others. It brings so much clarity. And to me, at least, having this type of conversation that I'm having with you right now is usually one of the richest sources of ideas and inspiration and energy that I ever get. So I'm very thankful to be able to learn from these stories. Looking forward, how do you feel that empathy could drive the industry forward, drive cybersecurity forward? Because we have a bunch of challenges to tackle. They feel like this industry is one of the critical industries that has to ensure stability, not just in technology, but further looking into geopolitics and other complicated stuff. So I think that that's what I'm trying to, the conversation that I'm trying to start is how do we use empathy to move the industry forward in a way that's beneficial and that attracts people who are kind and committed, just like you.
If I think about it, and the more I start thinking about it, the more I start to feel that it's a little bit of a paradox. And I'll tell you why. If you look at this industry, you have to look at it in three particular perspectives. You have to look at it from the commercial perspective, where you've got the vendors, you've got the solution players, you've got the value-added resellers, you've got the consulting companies. You've got the academics who are contributing to research, and you've got the ethicists who are coming up with new dilemmas that cyber is venturing into. I mean, cyber is nascent compared to engineering and medicine and all that, right? So we have got new ethical issues to deal with. The paradox exists because the first group of people are motivated by commerce and growth. In today's world where everything is a multiple of something, there's no empathy over there. The academics, there's some great academics out there doing some great work, but the academics are too far removed from realities. And the ethicists are caught up in the moral dilemmas of their own creation. There's a fourth group here, which is the rest of us. And it's the rest of us that have to help each other out. So as simplistic and John Lennon-esque as it may sound, be kind to each other, smile, imagine. Obviously, what does that mean in a practical perspective? I think a society is judged by how it treats its most vulnerable. In a cyber context, that actually translates to individuals, especially disadvantaged individuals, whether it's economically disadvantaged or physically disadvantaged or, at some disadvantage. It's smallest tiers of business and commerce, which is a problem I'm trying to address. I can't realistically at this stage go and help individuals at scale, but I can help small tier commerce organizations, which is what we're doing with Jumpstart. But only when we secure our most vulnerable is when we would actually feel empathy, because they are the ones who are actually facing the biggest brunt of issues, because they are the closest to the coalface, so to speak. That is how I think we can get out of this paradox. Organizations, and now at the same time, the first group of people I refer to, like, the corporates and the vendors and the big players, they are also now starting to branch out and do some social conscious efforts, by making available tools or by investing in education, by contributing to STEM or STEAM, trying to get more and more people, acclimatized to digital and cyber. But that's not enough, because that's only application. So, like I said, only when we start addressing the most vulnerable in our society will we actually get to a point where empathy is commonplace. Otherwise, till then, it's individual efforts, and sometimes you manage to make a big impact, sometimes it's small, usually it's small. I hope that doesn't sound very pessimistic, but this is based on my understanding and my interpretation of where I see cyber and where I see the world right now.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's pessimistic at all. I think that it's realistic. I really believe in being, realistic about how things are, so we can actually do something about it, because otherwise, pessimism will drive our energy down, and being overly optimistic will probably determine us to not be truly in tune with what people need. And as you mentioned, and I love that you shared this perspective, because this is a difficult thing to think about. And I think that we are so inclined nowadays to escape difficult things and to try to fill our minds with something else, so we don't have to deal with certain issues that can be very painful, either on a personal level in your close circle or just society wide. So I think that you spoke to a very important issue here, and I value your contribution, and thank you for taking the time to talk about these things and to share your perspective so honestly and candidly. It makes a world of difference, and I'm really looking forward for listeners to connect with you and your work and with this message and take it further. So thank you, Saaim.
No, thank you so much, Andra. Thank you for the opportunity. And it's always it leaves one with positive energy and a general positive feeling when we're able to have open and frank conversations. So I really appreciate what you're doing here. I'm going to follow with interest the other speakers that come on. These are important conversations that we need. These don't happen often enough. So good on you for kickstarting this initiative.
Thank you. So as you know, we've talked a lot about empathy and self-empathy on this podcast. And that means giving ourselves a break, which is what I'm going to do over the, holiday period that's coming up. I will come back in January first thing with new episodes. There are a bunch that are just, waiting to be released. And I'll be more than happy to kind of renew my excitement for this podcast and for reconnecting with you. Once we've had a good rest, once we've given ourselves a break, and once we've enjoyed some offline time where we just let our brains just breathe, just sit, just, process everything that's happened this year. So I hope you have a few calm, peaceful weeks that replenish you with everything that you need. And I'll be back with a new episode in January. So enjoy, and I hope you have your best year yet. It was lovely to discover new ways of practicing empathy and cybersecurity with you today. Explore the podcast for more stories about connection, for more inspiring ideas, and for more people who drive online security and privacy forward. It's a great chance to learn from them how to improve your own practice of empathy, both in keeping yourself safe online, but also far beyond that. You can find all of the episodes on andrazaharia.com, plus a bunch of resources that come with each episode, and lots more articles and guides that could help you along the way. Lovely seeing you here, and be sure to reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn if you have any ideas or want to propose any new guests. See you around.